All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are uncovering something incredibly fascinating: the hidden corporate realities behind those millions of grocery store choices we make literally every single day. We're looking at the true cost of our food through the lens of the SASB standard for meat, poultry, and dairy.
So, you might be wondering, how do we actually measure the true cost of our food? Well, let's strip away all that dense corporate accounting jargon for a second to see what is genuinely happening behind the labels of the meat, eggs, and dairy products we consume. Because it's not just about the price tag at checkout, right? It's really about the hidden risks baked into the supply chain.
Here's the crucial point. These SASB standards aren't just some academic theory. We are talking about 77 industry-specific sustainability accounting standards. For investors and companies, this is the ultimate corporate playbook for tracking specific social and environmental risks that directly affect a company's cash flow and, ultimately, its bottom line.
Okay, here is our agenda for today. We're going to cover 1. The meat and dairy standard, 2. Food safety and recall risks, 3. Protecting the processing workforce, 4. Animal care and welfare, and 5. Measuring what truly matters.
Section 1. The meat and dairy standard. Today, we're taking a reverse plate-to-plant journey starting right at the foundation.
The specific standard we're focusing on, categorized as FBMP, applies to large entities producing raw and processed meats, eggs, and dairy. And what's absolutely critical to understand here is that these major corporations rely heavily on incredibly complex webs of independent and contract farmers. Managing sustainability across that massive, highly fragmented supply chain, that is exactly what this tool is designed to measure.
Moving on to Section 2, Food Safety and Recall Risks.
Now, when we look at Global Food Safety Initiative, or GFSI audits, the standard makes a really important distinction. It forces companies to separate minor facility slip-ups, which don't confirm a systemic problem on their own, from major nonconformances. These major issues? They are systemic failures that pose severe risk to public health and require immediate escalation and corrective action.
Because when major nonconformances escalate unchecked, that's when we see product recalls. And the SASB standard requires tracking not just the number of recalls, but the total metric tonnage of the affected food. Think about that volume. It's essential for investors to track if a company acted voluntarily to pull products off the shelf or if they were slapped with an involuntary recall, meaning they were forcefully mandated by regulatory authorities to do it. They also have to specifically flag notable recalls which involve significant amounts of product or, tragically, serious illnesses and fatalities.
And the financial consequences of failing on food safety, they go global. Failing on safety can trigger what are known as SPS measures, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, which are basically just government-enacted import bans. For instance, just a single detected case of bovine spongiform encephalopathy, more commonly known as mad cow disease, can instantly trigger global bans and devastate a company's international market share overnight.
Section 3. Protecting the processing workforce. Stepping back from the actual food, the standard itself acknowledges a pretty harsh reality. To quote it directly, the meat, poultry, and dairy industry has relatively high injury rates, given the prevalence of industrial machinery, chemicals, and a fast-paced, loud working environment. This paints a visceral picture of the intense and frankly often hazardous reality these workers navigate every single day just to process our food safely.
So this brings us to TRAIR, the Total Recordable Incident Rate. This is the critical metric companies use to calculate exactly how many employees suffer serious injuries on the floor. And we aren't talking about a minor scrape here. These are incidents resulting in days away from work, restricted duties, loss of consciousness, or medical treatment well beyond basic first aid. Crucially, the standard demands injury rate data for both direct payroll employees and third-party contract workers.
But it's not just the heavy machinery and loud noises. There are invisible threats, too. The standard specifically tracks severe respiratory hazards caused by airborne particulates. These range from acute conditions like chemical burns to chronic long-term conditions like organic toxic dust syndrome and COPD. Companies absolutely must report on their mitigation strategies, detailing how they provide readily accessible personal protective equipment and ongoing health monitoring for their entire workforce.
Section 4. Animal care and welfare. Taking it all the way back to the source, public perception around animal cruelty poses a massive financial risk to these companies. The standard requires tracking the exact percentage of pork produced without the use of gestation crates, and the standard starkly defines these crates right here,
Non-bedded enclosures with concrete floors and metal stalls, restrictive enough to prevent dynamic movements like a sow even turning around. Consumers are actively demanding change, and investors need to know which companies are adapting to those demands.
It's fascinating because corporate accounting essentially tracks animal welfare purely by percentages of weight or volume. It literally turns an emotional, ethical issue into hard, trackable data. We're looking at the percentage of pork produced without gestation crates, the percentage of cage-free shell eggs, and the total percentage of production certified to third-party animal welfare standards.
To mitigate reputational damage and avoid fines, companies rely really heavily on third-party animal welfare standards. These independent guidelines rigorously cover 4 exact stages of the animal's life: their overall treatment and handling, housing and transportation conditions, the procedures at slaughter facilities, and finally, the use of antibiotics and hormones.
And finally, Section 5, measuring what truly matters.
So what's the big takeaway? The crucial point is that tracking these sustainability metrics isn't just some PR exercise in ethics. It is fundamentally about managing severe financial and regulatory risks to the business. This breakdown captures the risk versus reward reality perfectly. Food safety failures lead directly to costly recalls and devastating import bans. Poor worker safety results in harsh fines, low morale, and a huge loss in productivity. And ignoring animal welfare, that causes massive brand damage and a rapid loss of market share.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. If a company doesn't measure it, do they really manage it? Keep that in the back of your mind the next time you're at the grocery store comparing labels. True corporate transparency in our food system only actually exists when we measure the hard facts and hold that data accountable. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those tough questions.